Hi everyone and welcome to the Neurolympics podcast where we believe that every brain's got talent. This podcast is brought to you by Brains First, the company that helps you make better talent decisions powered by neuroscience. I'm Lucy, I'm the host of the Neurolympics podcast, and in case you're wondering why I'm so enthusiastic about applying these psychological and neuroscientific insights to the workplace, to societal issues, to professional sports, well, I have a background in psychology, a bachelor's degree in psychology, and a master's in applied neuroscience. So this is really what I signed up for. This is what I'm really passionate about. And with our episodes, we're actually running through the behavioral cycle, through the 6 natural skills that we're measuring with the Neurolympics cognitive games that we develop with Brains First that measure your cognitive potential and then match it to the tasks and jobs and environments that allow you to thrive in. And last month, we addressed the topic of attention, the first natural skill, in 2 episodes where we spoke about, anything related to attention, how you take in information. And this month is all about what you actually do with these information, so about thinking. And so far, we've already released 1 episode with our co-founder, one of our co-founders and neuroscience experts, Andries van der Leij, where we spoke about the fundamentals of the thinking brain and also about the 2 fundamentally different thinking styles. So you can be more of a thorough thinker or intuitive thinker. And we address the opportunities that come with each of the thinking styles and also the challenges, especially in the workplace. We also spoke about how you can optimize cognitive diversity and team dynamics. We also addressed the issue of burnout and dived into practical tips that can help you to slow down cognitive drain at the end of the day, and also spoke about some leadership strategies. And today I want to use the opportunity to go into a few more topics related to the thinking brain that I'm very enthusiastic about. So let's get right into it. Last week, I actually had a really interesting conversation with one of my colleagues who's, let's say, 1 generation above me, so in his 40s. And he said a really interesting sentence. He said to me, "Lucy, I think your generation has it better, but I don't think you're feeling better." And I thought about this, and let me elaborate on why I think he's right and how it relates to how we're thinking as a society, how we're treating thinking nowadays. My first point is our workloads are becoming larger and we're embracing it. What do I mean by this? Especially in a work setting, we have the tendency to take on more and more tasks. I think we live in a society that doesn't really dare to say no, because we first of all have I think, distorted image of productivity that I will get into in a second, but also because we live in this low friction communication style. We don't really want to get into conflicts at work. And this might lead us to take on a lot of different tasks and here's the problem, our workloads increase, but also the cognitive load that comes with these tasks increases as well. Well, what is cognitive load? It's really the mental energy that you need to dedicate towards a task to successfully deal with the task. I think the problem is with taking on these diverse different tasks that your brain is made to excel in certain tasks, but definitely not in all tasks. You have certain preferences. For example, if you're a more thorough thinker, you really love to dive deeply into the topics. You really love to explore a problem case from all different perspectives. And you can go on brainstorming for 2 hours, but you don't really like settling at a solution. However, if you're a more intuitive thinker, you really enjoy to make progress. You like to get down to a solution very quickly. You don't need to look at all these different angles of a problem case. So if you're a thorough thinker and you're put into this fast-paced environment, you're just not gonna like it. Your brain's not gonna like it. On the other hand, if you're more of this intuitive thinker and you're suddenly in this environment where you're asked to always do these deep analysis and look at a problem case super detailed, you're gonna be exhausted at the end of the day because it's just not what you are made to excel at, let's say. But with taking on these different tasks, no one's going to tell you, no one is really watching are these actually tasks that you thrive in? So your cognitive load is increasing because tasks might not come very easy to you. They might require a lot of brain power. And so at the end of the day, we're just easily drained and cognitively exhausted. And I think this behavior of taking on different tasks really feeds into I think, distorted image of productivity that we have as a society, because ultimately how we see productivity nowadays, that's what I think, let me know in the comment section if you think differently about it, is we're sitting down at the desk and we're trying to get as many things done as possible in as little time as possible. And it even gets worse. We're trying to multitask. We think we're ultimately the kings and queens of productivity, nailing productivity if we do multiple things at the same time. Well, we mentioned on this podcast already a couple of times, please don't multitask. It's one of the worst things you can do to your brain, to your productivity. But yeah, we sit down, we think we need to get things done. We think it's productive if we're sitting there and just getting into the flow, never taking breaks, maybe even cutting down on our lunch break, even feeling bad taking a walk outside. And ultimately, the image we have of productivity is getting as much things done as possible in as little time as possible, and ultimately over an extended time period. Well, if this is the true image of productivity, we're clearly overthinking. What do I mean with we're clearly overthinking? Our brains have capacity limits, and they are not made to think in this way. It's not that we are taking on work that is too hard, but we're taking on too many different tasks and we're doing it in the wrong way. We're multitasking and we're doing things, several things at the same time and in the wrong way. And I think we all know this feeling. I give you an example. The other day I walk into the office and I sit down at my desk and immediately, or after 10 minutes, the fire alarm goes off. And I really did it the German way. I left all my belongings upstairs, including my phone. I thought, okay, that's always what we're told to do. Leave everything behind, just go outside of the building. And we arrived downstairs with the team and I realized I left my phone upstairs, and then we go on a 30-minute walk with the team. And I start getting this these intrusive thoughts, really this feeling of guilt. I should sit down at my desk. I should be productive. I'm taking a break now. I'm walking around. I should do this. If I would have taken my phone, I could respond to this email. I could take on this task. I could do this on LinkedIn. And after a while, of course, I super much enjoyed the walk, and I also got back to the office and I could sit down and I could actually get into a really nice workflow afterwards because I did everything right. I got some sunlight in, I got some fresh air in, I got some physical activity, what sets you up to get into a workflow. But after a while I get tired, of course, and then I tell myself, wow, I shouldn't take a break. I have been taking a break already for half an hour today, so let's just keep sitting at the desk. And what I do is exactly the wrong thing. I grab my phone, I go into Instagram, I check LinkedIn messages, and I tell myself, no, Lucy, keep sitting because you should be productive. And then we leave the office and we go to the supermarket, and what happens, we just encounter these billion different choices. The average supermarket offers about 200 different options for cereal and 175 different options for salad dressing. And we're clearly thinking too much, even in the supermarket. What should I go for? Which choice should I make? And then we go home and we think, okay, we can take a break. We sit down and we turn on Netflix. And this is according to his library. There's more than 5,000 different titles only on Netflix. So I don't know if you know the feeling scrolling through a movie or deciding for a movie, and after 20 minutes you're like, I don't know what I want to watch. Let's leave that movie behind. Let's just not watch a movie. Or you go on Spotify, you want to listen to music, you want to relax, but there's over 100 million different songs released on Spotify. And then it gets even better. You think, okay, now I'm really, really chilling. And you go onto Instagram, you mindlessly scroll through all of the posts and stories, and you really think you're giving your brain a break. Well, clearly you're not giving your brain a break. It's constantly on. It's constantly processing information. And don't get me wrong, I'm not pointing the finger at you. I should point the finger at myself. But really, we don't really have a choice to choose to leave all these choices behind. They're just, we're just confronted with them. We can't really do anything about it. They're just there. But clearly it's not good for our brains. We keep overthinking. And here is where it gets more and more wrong. First point, we're telling ourselves we're being unproductive when doing nothing. And second, we tell our kids and our students, please don't daydream, don't look outside of the window, don't let your thoughts drift away. Why is this really a wrong advice? Well, I'll give you an example you might know this feeling. You're going out for a walk, you take a stroll through the woods, through the neighborhoods, and suddenly this amazing insight pops up. Suddenly you get the solution that you were looking for the entire day, discussing with your colleagues in the office, sitting down at your desk, but suddenly it just pops up while you're on a walk. Why is that? You were mind wandering. And why is mind wandering so crucial for you? Because you're giving your brain kind of a break. It suddenly has time to breathe. And while you're not dedicating your mental resources towards a specific task or goal, what your brain is ultimately doing, it's taking all the information it has been processing during the day, and it's doing something really, really cool. It takes, let's say, two unrelated thoughts and it connects them. It forms new neural connections, these new associations that you then experience as this new insight coming up or this new solution. So really, when mind wandering, your brain is going into a brain state that's called the default mode network, and it has been thought for some time that it's inactive when it's not really dedicating its resources towards a goal, but really it is active just in this different way. It makes these new connections. And this is super crucial for problem solving because suddenly you get these new connected ideas or thoughts that were beforehand unrelated. And it also gives you this new creativity because suddenly, a new idea popped up. So the kid sitting in the classroom looking outside of the window that we point the finger at and say, this is wrong, might actually be engaging in one of the most precious and useful forms of thinking. And it's really a shame we're not more often giving our brains this time to breathe and to take a little break, because at some point it is then just telling us it's enough. So let me take a second to again speak about burnout. Most experts would say that burnout is not really related to the amount of work, the quantity of work that you're doing, but the way how you're working. And by taking on what I said earlier, these different tasks and diversity of tasks, we're often forgetting that all these tasks bring some sort of administrative overhead with them. So every single task involves some sort of communication with someone, like an email contact, and also engaging in meetings, which brings us to, talking about the work, thinking about the work, but not really doing the work. So the more administrative overhead we have to deal with, the less you might say we're actually getting the work done. So at the end of the day, this leaves us with a very dangerous psychological state. And that is we're asking ourselves, what have I even done today? We're working more hours, we're more cognitively drained, but we still have the feeling I didn't really get things done. And I think this is related to burnout. And then, ironically, we're more cognitively exhausted, but we're also experiencing this societal sleep problem. The National Sleep Foundation and also other broader research into sleep has actually reported that the amount of sleep that we have decreased by 20% in the last century. And that's very detrimental, especially for our kids. They have lost over the last century an average of 85 minutes of sleep. And while for us adults, sleep is really important for memory consolidation and for resting our cognitive resources, for kids it's even more detrimental because their cognitive abilities haven't really developed yet fully. So if they are robbed of their sleep, this really has an effect on their development, on their cognitive development. And also the quality of sleep that our students are getting in is nowadays equivalent to that of an active duty soldier and of a parent of a newborn. And what does really sleep deprivation do to our cognitive abilities? Well, we're clearly losing our ability to focus well. And if you're not sleeping for 19 hours straight, this has the same effect on your mental abilities as if you were drunk. We're also losing the ability of reading cognitively demanding texts for a longer time because our brains like to skip over information when they are drained. They don't like to go into depth. They like to stay on the surface level. So we're having difficulties reading these demanding texts. And also, when you're sleep deprived, this has an effect on memory consolidation, on learning, on really resting your mental resources. And also, your brain and your body goes into this state of emergency. So there's physiological changes. Your heart rate goes up, your nervous system becomes really, really active, your sympathetic nervous system. And it's really your brain is interpreting your body as in a state of emergency, which is, of course, producing a lot of stress. And actually, this is for the athletes out there. The athletes that have the quickest reaction times are the ones that sleep the most and that have the best quality of sleep. So here's a life hack besides, of course, putting away all these technological distractions before going to sleep, how you can improve your sleep. You need to radically limit the amount of light exposure before you go to sleep, because our brains and bodies interpret light as the arrival of sunrise. But I cannot leave a thinking episode, without addressing the topic of learning and memory consolidation. So there's a really famous neuroscientific saying, what fires together wires together. And this relates to what we call Hebbian learning. What it actually tells us is the brain hardwires everything that we repeatedly do. So the more often you think a thought or the more often you engage in a certain activity, the more easier and automated it will become for you to perform the next time. Now you might think, okay, this is really a great opportunity. This is what happens when you practice playing the piano. Everything becomes more automated. This is what happens for professional athletes. The more you do a task, the more automated it becomes. You're just going to the system one thinking. You don't even really consciously think about anymore what you're doing, but you just do it. And this is a really helpful tool that the brain is giving us here, because it helps us to learn. On the other side, you might think about a downside, and I want to raise some awareness towards here. Our brain is really tuned to first impressions. So if you're scanning a candidate, for example, during an HR recruitment process, or you're meeting a new colleague, the first impression you have about the person is really, really strong. And so you might have the tendency now to think that thought about the person again. And maybe it's not the most positive one, or maybe it's really limiting. You're thinking that person is exactly that image that I have of the person, but you're not really allowing yourself to have this open perspective who else this person could be. So this could really be harmful in team development and team dynamics. And I really want to encourage you to keep this open perspective towards your colleagues, to other people, and really challenge your brain to get out of this getting into the loop of always thinking the same thought again, but really keeping this open perspective. Who could someone be? Maybe differently what I thought this person would be. And then also, this Hebbian learning is, of course, very useful for branding. If we think of Nike, just do it. Like really effective branding is exactly doing that. It's repeatedly showing a certain image of a company, a certain tagline. That's what we do with the podcast here, because every brain's got talent. We really want you to internalize this. Every brain has talent and is unique. So what you repeatedly show will, of course, form a stronger connection with your brand, with your company, and people will start to form preferences toward that company, and also more likability. And thirdly, it's also really useful for if you want to bring across visions or certain values of a company or culture or sports club. If you repeatedly show your values and visions, for example, this will become more clear for you people through repeatedly showing. This will help trust building and also forming this emotional bond, and also help you to set up authenticity and ultimately more engagement also with the people. But be cautious here, because while the brain loves a repetition, it also gets bored at some point, and the brain also likes variation. So if you want to achieve a learning boost, for example, make sure to represent the same content or teach about the same content, but then in different variations. Or this is also what you could do or professional sports clubs are doing professional athletes in training. You're training a certain drill, but then in different variations, and this will really boost your learning. You're representing the same content, but then in a different format. Your learning curve will ultimately go up. Now I have 4 neuroscience-based strategies how you can boost your learning, and the first one is spaced repetition. So if you spread out the information that you need to learn over a couple of days, this will be way more effective, especially for long-term retention, than if you would just cramp it in a day before an exam, for example. So spread it out through a couple of days will be way more effective because it gives your brain time to actually consolidate the information. The second tip is active learning and retrieval. So instead of just looking at certain information, looking at a piece of paper and trying to read this information, actively engage with the material. You could incorporate it in problem-solving cases. You could encourage asking open questions. And I do this, for example, when I learn something. I walk around, I ask myself questions about the material, and ultimately you'll engage more brain areas, and this will help you boost your learning as well. This is also related to the third point that I have. Make use of storytelling. So when I walk around and I tell myself about all these facts, I try to build a storyline, because then you ultimately engage again more brain areas. For example, visual brain areas, because for most of us then we're trying to also visualize this story, and the more brain areas you engage, the stronger the learning effect will be. And if you then even add a little bit of an emotional touch, well, this will even boost learning more. And lastly, really don't underestimate the power of curiosity. So represent materials in a way that really everyone stays curious and wants to learn more and more about it, because curiosity activates the reward system in our brain. So dopamine is being released, and dopamine is ultimately linked to motivation. And motivation is then also linked to better learning effects. Well, guys, I think we're approaching the end of our episode. I hope you find this super beneficial and you can make use of these information and insights in your personal life, in your work life, in your sporting career. And I want to end with what I started off with. The way we treat thinking nowadays is really draining our cognitive capacity. And I want to leave you with a question. Now that we're really cognitively drained and our cognitive resources are really depleted throughout the day, do you think we're set up to make good decisions still? Do you think we have the mental space and capacity to make good and healthy decisions? Well, I'll leave you with this. Let me know any answers, any thoughts in the comment section, because the next month we'll actually dive into the topic of decision making. So I'm really excited for that. But yeah, anyways, leave any comments, any other questions you have, any thoughts in the comment section. Leave some love there. I would love to engage with you. And also, we would love to see you more frequently on the Neurolympics podcast. So please make sure to subscribe to all or any of our platforms. We're on Amazon Music, we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. You can find all of our platforms if you go to www.brainsfirst.com/podcast. And also make sure to follow our social media accounts, Instagram, TikTok. We're really planning to be out there even more, and we'd love for you to follow along. So yeah, guys, I'm excited to see you soon again on the Neurolympics podcast. Until then, stay healthy, stay happy, everyone, and see you next time. Ciao, ciao.